Hello, my name is Matt Callahan. I'm the Economic Regeneration Manager for Swansea Council, and today in this video I'm going to be providing you an overview briefing of the Innovation Grant which is available through Swansea Council. So before we get into the detail of this video, just a little bit of background. This grant fund has been made available through the Local Growth Fund, LGF, and this is funding directly from UK Government and Welsh Government, and is part of a wider package of business support that is shown through a range of business grants, not just this one, but also includes support for startups, business support events and workshops, all of which you can find details of on our social media pages, e-newsletter and our website. So the Innovation Grant, a little bit of overarching detail before we get into the further detail of specifically what this grant is available for and how it can support your business. So this Innovation Grant is available to established businesses only. That's to say that at the point of application, businesses need to have been in existence for a minimum of 6 months. So the Innovation Grant came about off the back of the Growth Grant, which had been in place for a number of months. But we identified that a number of businesses that wanted to apply for the Growth Grant were hitting difficulties around a specific requirement of the Growth Grant, which was that you must be creating jobs directly as a result of the grant funding or project that you had in mind. So this Innovation Grant exists, but it hasn't got the element of job creation attached to it, which the Growth Grant has. There are, however, 2 specific requirements which are attached to this Innovation Grant. Firstly is that it must be supporting initiatives which will develop new products or innovation processes which will support innovation and growth within the business. And that growth within the business is a really important element. So it's innovation above and beyond what you're doing at the moment that's going to be leading to growth within that business. And second important element is that projects must be developed in collaboration with an external and separate research partner. And again, I'll come on to provide some further detail around what this means, but it cannot be a project that you're carrying out in isolation within your business. So how much funding is available? Potentially we can offer grants of up to £10,000 through this grant scheme, but there is a blanket 50% match requirement funding in all cases. So that's to say, we'll put in £1, you'll put in £1, all the way up to that maximum grant of £10,000. So in that scenario, maximum grant of £10,000, we're looking at a 20k project overall. So some eligibility. This is not an exhaustive list, but it gives a highlight of some of the most likely or common areas of things that would be eligible through this grant. So first of which is support for developing and testing new products or services, including prototyping. Patent drafting or filing costs is something we have supported in the past. Just bear in mind the timescales. Often those patent drafting and filing costs can be a drawn out process, and we are looking at a fairly limited grant window here. But in theory, patent drafting and filing costs could be eligible. R&D, research and development of a process, product or service, speaks for itself in terms of what the scope for that might be. Testing your innovative ideas to prove the concept or prove that they are going to be market viable going forward. And then linked to that, proof of market, which may be market research or scoping, products or competitor analysis to test and identify gaps within the market. So always coming back to innovation above and beyond what you're doing at the moment, and then it leading importantly to growth within the business going forward. Eligibility. So these are elements of what the project must be inclusive of when you come to submit the application. So first of all, it sounds obvious, but the project itself must be innovative and must also be different to anything that's available within your wider marketplace or that of your competitors. So focused on commercializing an idea or doing something different. Projects must aim to introduce a new product or enhanced process. So I've mentioned this a couple of times already. Something new above and beyond what's being done in the marketplace or within your business at the moment. and the projects must access specialist expertise or technology that does not currently exist within the business. Projects must clearly demonstrate commercial justification, and this could include, but isn't limited to, business growth. So ultimately, with all these grants, we're looking to deliver and support business growth. It could include increased market share or venture into a new market. Could include improved productivity within the business, could include increased efficiency, or could increase the turnover of a business. And of course, all the better if you can include not just one of those bullet points, but several within those. But bear in mind that this is a business growth grant. We're looking for business growth, improved efficiency, improved turnover. So all of those things basically come back to an element of improving business growth overall. I mentioned at the start that there were sort of two elements to it. So introduction of a new product or service, but also demonstration of collaboration with an external partner. So with all of these grants, it's UK government funding, and whenever we award a grant, we've got to report back to UK government that there has been a tangible impact for that grant that we're awarding. In our language, those are called outputs and outcomes. So for the growth grant, that output and outcome is new product or service, but it's also jobs created. And I've mentioned already that jobs created is not an element of this. So one of the things that UK government are asking us to report is that yes, there's a new product or service, but businesses must be demonstrating new collaborations, new partnerships put in place. So what that grant application must demonstrate is collaboration with one or more of the following UK-based partners: an industry partner, a university, or a recognised research organisation. Now, most of the applications that we dealt with through the previous iteration of this grant scheme focused on working with the university, and obviously there's two within Swansea itself. So it's a separate external organisation, most typically a university. Importantly, however, that collaboration cannot be transactional only. So it cannot be literally a service that you're buying off the shelf where you're paying for that service to be delivered. There has to be a mutual benefit from the research and information gathered from that partnership that's going to benefit you and the research partner itself. I've mentioned loosely in terms of what's eligible, in terms of patent costs, R&D costs, that sort of thing. Probably also just worth highlighting what's ineligible as a result of this grant funding. So ineligible includes, but it's not limited to, vehicles, possibly slightly less likely that you'd be asking for vehicles through the innovation grant, but vehicles are not fundable through any of the LGF schemes that we've got in place. So it's just worth mentioning that vehicles cannot be funded in any way, shape or form on the innovation or any of our grants. We cannot fund staff salaries. We cannot fund backdated expenses, for example, repayment of loans. We cannot fund payment of existing subcontractors, premises rental or business rates, and basically any other general running costs such as purchasing of materials or stock. If your business is VAT registered, we can also not fund the VAT element of any purchase that you make as part of your application. So the scheme requirements, this is a Swansea Council scheme which we're delivering on behalf of UK and Welsh Government. So the applicant business must be based within the Swansea Council area, and any economic benefit that you're going to be demonstrating must also be felt within Swansea itself. All local authorities within the area have similar schemes to this. So if you're watching this video and you're based in Carmarthenshire, Neathport, Talbot, Pembrokeshire, it will be worth looking at the equivalent schemes they've got in place through the Local Growth Fund, because they'll have similar schemes to us. But obviously, as we are Swansea Council administering this scheme, we need to see that the economic benefit and the business itself is located within the Swansea Council area. Other requirements at the point of application, as well as the application form itself, businesses must provide us with a business plan or summary and a 12-month financial forecast, as well as the latest set of company accounts to us. If the business plan is up and together and is fairly broad in terms of what it covers, The application form itself should be fairly straightforward, because there won't be anything within that application form that wouldn't be covered within an extensive and detailed business plan. We would need 2 quotes for any line of expenditure that you submit, and obviously only the lower of those 2 quotes can be paid. So any line of expenditure that you submit, we would need 2 like-for-like quotes, the lowest of which can be paid. We recognise, particularly with regard to the innovation grant, that if you're sourcing a specialist piece of equipment, a specialist research partner, it may be that that is a shortlist of 1 in terms of they are the only people that can provide that. If that is the case, just put a footnote on the application form itself to explain that, and then in most cases that would be acceptable. But where 2 like-for-like quotes are available, we would ask you to provide, you would be required to provide those as part of the application form itself. We would need 2 forms of ID, one of which must be photographic, so typically a driving licence or a passport, and these are subject to the details of your business, but a safeguarding policy if your business involves working with children or vulnerable adults, an equalities policy if you're employing staff, and finally you'll be asked to answer questions on the Welsh language. Sometimes this one concerns people a little bit. We're not asking you to become fluent Welsh speakers or complete Duolingo. It's just basically asking you to make reasonable measures and acknowledgement of the Welsh language. Business Wales provide a Hello Blod service, which is a free online translation service. In most cases, if you put that you would utilise Hello Blod for any required translations, that will be sufficient levels of detail for us to get you through that stage and those questions. Applicants must have no arrears on council tax or business rates. When the application comes in, we will check your addresses with our colleagues in tax and benefits. Any revenue, any arrears that are flagged up through that check would be flagged to us. If there are arrears on those accounts, unfortunately those arrears would need to be cleared before the application could proceed. So please make sure that when you apply to us, you don't have any arrears on those 2 accounts, because it will be part of the checks that we carry out. It's only expenditure not yet incurred. So how the process works is that you would submit the application to us. If successful, and through our grant panel, which I'll talk about in just a moment, if successful through our grant panel, you would then basically get the green light to go ahead and incur that expenditure, and you would then have a claim window to incur and claim those costs back to us. But importantly, at the point of application, you cannot have incurred any of those expenditures, because essentially UK government would look at it and say, well, you've bought this without knowing or having had confirmed that a grant is available to you, therefore it can't be subject to the grant itself, because you've gone ahead and bought it regardless of knowing whether you've been awarded a grant or not. So it's expenditure not yet incurred. You may be aware that we are running a number of LGF grant funds, 4 in fact. Any applicant can apply for up to 2 of those 4 LGF grant funds, but only each scheme once, and to a combined total of £50,000. So if you were to apply for the maximum 10k grant through the innovation grant, you would basically have 40k headroom through one of the other 3 grants that are available through the LGF funding. So I mentioned already, applicants would be required to complete an application form. The process of that is through the email address to request a copy of that application form, which we'll send you straight away. I'll provide you with the email address for that at the end of this presentation. Once we receive the application form from you, it will go through a stage called compliance. And that compliance basically checks that we have all the supporting documents that we need, all the evidence quotes that you have provided to us check out in terms of matching where you state that those quotes have been sourced from. And once you pass compliance, you'll then be passed on to assessment. That assessment will involve one of my colleagues within the business team making an assessment of that grant application, writing a report with an associated recommendation. That report and recommendation will be passed to our grant panel, and the grant panel will make the final judgment on whether to approve that grant or not. During the compliance and assessment stage, please be ready to respond to any queries which my colleagues may flag up with you. The quicker you respond to those questions and queries, the quicker we can move you through the application process and get you to panel. I'm always slightly reluctant to provide timescales on how long this will take, but the general guidance is 2 to 4 weeks from the point at which you submit the application form to getting you to grant panel where your application will be judged. The quicker you can respond to those queries and the more up and together the application form is in the first place, the nearer it will be to 2 weeks than 4 weeks. But again, that 2 to 4 weeks is just the guidance really to give you some idea and to manage expectations for how long that would take. If your grant goes to panel and is approved by the panel, you would then have 2 months to complete the claim. That is to submit the expenditure of anything on your application form and get evidence of that expenditure back to us within the business team. What does that claim process look like? Well, if successful, you will be sent an offer letter, a claim form and a funding agreement. You would need to sign the claim form and offer letter and get those back to us. You would need to obviously incur the expenditure and provide us with receipt of that expenditure or paid invoices, and provide us with bank or credit card statements evidencing that you yourself, your business, have incurred that expenditure directly. And obviously the bank statements or credit card statements would have to match the receipts and the amounts on them. You complete the claim form, get that back to us, and we could then process the claim and get the payment, 50% payment of any costs incurred back to you. We try and turn that around as quickly as we can, but typically we'd need 2 to 3 weeks between when you submit your claim back to us and those funds landing back into your account again. So just bear in mind with your own cash flow, there may be a period of 2 to 3 weeks between when you incur the expenditure and when we get that claim money, that grant money paid back to you. If cash flow is a particular issue for you within your business, we can do 2 to 3 stage payments. So it might be that you buy 2 or 3 of the items, submit a claim, get the grant paid back to you, buy 2 or 3 more items, submit a claim, get those funds back to you. So as long as it's not 2 or 3 stage payments any more than that, we can accommodate that within our claim process. And then finally, really just a few top tips in terms of what a successful grant application looks like. I've mentioned the business plan and the cash flow forecast. Ensure that they are well constructed and highlight what it is that your business is looking to do. When it comes to the grant panel, all that grant panel will have is your business plan, your financial cash flow forecast, and the application form itself. They will not get to meet you in person. It's not an interview process, so they are solely reliant upon the documents that are presented to them through the application form, your supporting documents, and ultimately the report which my colleague writes, identifying strengths and weaknesses of your particular funding application. So ensure that they are well constructed, because that is what the panel are going to be forming their judgment upon. Please be realistic and honest in your growth ambitions. Sometimes there's a belief that bigger numbers are better in terms of what your growth looks like. Big is fine, but it needs to be underpinned by what's realistic within your business. So just be honest with what your growth ambitions look like following any award that you are seeking to attract through this grant. If during the process of filling out the application form you need help at any point, please do come to us. Please ask us for it. We are here to help you with the application form wherever we can. Believe me, it's far easier for you to ask for help before you submit than us to have to go back and amend applications post-submission. It just draws the whole process out. So anything you're not sure about when you're submitting the application form and writing it, please ask us for that help, and we'll be here to help you wherever we can. Ensure that expenditure that you've asked for, i.e. what's on your ask list, is linked to the business plan and justified in the application. In other words, what are you looking to buy? How is it going to enable business growth? How is it going to enable innovation? So just make sure that you articulate the story of what you're asking for and how it's going to develop your business, how it's going to enable business growth. And ensure there's a triangular link between the product or service, the innovation and the expenditure. So just link together all elements of the application and make sure it tells the story of business growth and business development. So any inquiries and indeed to request an application form in the first place, please email growthgrant@swansea.gov.uk. It's also worth highlighting that we'll be running a series of surgeries and workshops. So if rather than emailing us for help and support, you want to go and meet one of our team one-to-one, there'll be opportunities for you to do so at one of our surgeries or workshops. Just look out for those details on our e-news, through our social media feeds as well. It's possibly quite helpful just to sit down with us over a desk and then just work through any queries on the application that you may have. But also check details of current funding position on swansea.gov.uk/business funding for any scheme updates. We intend to run the scheme for a number of months, but if you're watching this video further down the line, just check on our website before requesting or submitting the application form, just to check that there's been no updates to the overall local growth fund business funding scheme as it stands. So 20 minutes or so, I've run through that fairly quickly, but hopefully that's given you an overview of the innovation grant and the scope of what it can provide and support, and therefore look forward to receiving the application form in the near future. Best of luck with it. Thank you.